She made it to 7, so.
I just have to flag it when I see it. That's the part I can't really get around.
Right, no, I understand. I'm 34 and I'm a stay-at-home mum, which sounds simple when you say it out loud, but what it actually means is that I am the one who knows which brand of turkey my daughter will eat and which one she'll leave in this bag. And I'm the one who fills out the field trip forms and remembers when library books are due and stands in the pickup line at 2:47 every single day. My husband leaves before 6 most mornings. He's not uninvolved, he's just not there for most of it, which is different. The thing I want to talk about started with a birthday cake, which sounds like it should be a nice story, and for a while it was. The school had sent a wellness policy notice sometime in the first week of January, a single sheet of paper in the yellow folder that comes home every Thursday. I read it at the counter while the kettle was going. It talked about reducing added sugars and processed snacks and creating a consistent environment around nutrition. I set it on the counter. The laminated lunch menu on my fridge, held up by a magnet from a pizza place that closed about 8 months ago, listed things like chocolate pudding cups and flavoured milk, which I noticed but didn't do anything with. I kept packing lunch the same way I always had, because I pack her lunch, and a slice of homemade birthday cake is not, in my understanding, the kind of thing a wellness policy is meant to address. It's birthday cake.
Oh, I know, and it smelled wonderful, honestly.
She made it to 7, so.
I just have to flag it when I see it. That's the part I can't really get around.
Right, no, I understand. My daughter had turned 7 in early January, right after winter break, and I'd made her a lemon cake from scratch because it's her favourite. There was a lot of cake left over, so the next Monday I cut a small square, put it in one of those little hinged plastic containers, the kind you get in a set of 12 at the dollar store, completely unremarkable, and tucked it into her lunchbox next to her sandwich and her apple slices and the small bag of crackers I'd been packing since she started kindergarten. The container had that faint smell when you opened it, just barely sweet, the way baked sugar lingers even after it's cooled completely. The first time her teacher pulled me aside was a Thursday afternoon, maybe 3 weeks into the new semester. She was pleasant about it, the kind of pleasant that takes some effort to maintain, and she said she'd noticed a few times that my daughter's lunch had included sweets that didn't align with the new policy, and she wanted to flag it before it became a formal thing. My daughter was standing about 6 feet behind her with her backpack on, watching us the way kids do when they know something is happening but aren't sure what.
Did she say anything else, or just the one thing?
That was pretty much it.
So it's fine.
She said before it becomes a formal thing.
What does that mean, formal?
I don't know. I think it's just how they word it. What the teacher didn't know, and what I didn't bring up, was that I'd looked at the current lunch menu that same week. They'd finally sent an updated one. And I'd seen that the school was offering a dessert option on Fridays, a small chocolate chip cookie listed right there next to the fruit cup. I know the policy was probably about what came from home versus what the school could regulate and account for. I understand the difference technically, but I thought about it more than I should have, probably, while I was making sandwiches the next morning and the one after that. I started packing her lunch a little more carefully after the conversation at pickup. Not differently exactly, but more deliberately. The sandwich cut the way she likes, the apple slices fanned out instead of just stacked, and on the other days, something small and sweet in the plastic container, sealed, tucked in the corner.
She seemed fine when I picked her up. She didn't mention anything.
She wouldn't.
Is there still an issue with the lunch thing, or?
I packed her the same thing I always pack her.
Okay.
She got a certificate this year instead of the egg.
Oh, that's different.
The Easter bonnet competition happened somewhere in the middle of all this. My daughter had won a small chocolate egg the previous 2 years as part of the prize for her age group. This year she came home with a certificate. I have photos from the other years in a folder on my phone, her holding the foil-wrapped egg, squinting in the sun. My husband would come home and ask how her day was, and I'd say fine, and we'd talk about dinner or something he'd heard on the radio, and the school communication folder sat on the counter by the door where it always sat.
I think I got something from the school, actually, a while back.
When?
Maybe a few weeks ago I assumed you'd seen it too.
What did it say?
Something about documentation. I didn't think it was, I don't know. I thought you were handling it.
I was handling it.
Yeah, no, I know.
What I didn't know was that the teacher had been emailing him. Not me, him. His work address was on the emergency contact form, and apparently at some point, the school had started copying him on the formal documentation they were building. I found out later that he'd been reading them at his desk and assuming I knew and was handling it, because I always handle it, and so he hadn't brought it up, which seemed reasonable to him. He hadn't mentioned them in the same way I hadn't mentioned the cookie on the Friday menu. We were both keeping things somewhere slightly to the side of the conversation we were actually having. The notice came on a Tuesday. I found it in the folder, 2 pages, and it said that after multiple documented violations of the school's wellness policy, and after verbal and written communication with the family, the school had determined a 2-day in-school suspension was appropriate, effective the following Monday. I read it at the counter. I put it back in the folder. I made dinner. When my husband came home and I showed him, he was quiet for a long time, and then he said something about not knowing it had gotten to this point. And what he meant was that he hadn't known I'd been doing it deliberately, that it wasn't an oversight, that I'd read the notice in January and kept going anyway. His face did something complicated when he understood that part. The Tuesday after the notice, my husband took her to school, because I had a thing I said I had to do, which was not entirely true. And when he got back, he didn't say what they'd talked about on the drive over, and I didn't ask. The lunchbox is still on the counter. I keep meaning to move it to the shelf where it usually goes. The laminated menu is still on the refrigerator, held by the pizza magnet, still a month out of date, and I look at it sometimes when I'm standing there waiting for water to boil, and I don't take it down.